name is Samantha Huang. My title is Principal, and I work at BMW I Ventures. I invest in technologies and companies that hopefully will change the world one day. So a lot of my investments focus on investing in AI-enabled companies, and I think as we've grown into the modern day era, all the companies we invest in kind of have some element of AI. So that's really my foray into AI initiatives. There's an awesome company from New York called Optimal Dynamics. What they do is logistics optimization for trucking, but it could also be applied for any sort of multi-agent logistical issue, whether that's shipping or air. What's crazy about their platform is that they've been able to improve the profitability of their customers, for some customers up to 40%. They've been able to have savings for giant trucking companies for up to over $100 million in annual savings a year. They are using an AI technique called Approximate Dynamic Programming. Their research was based on a lot of the work that the CTO did when he was at Castle Labs at Princeton University. So in terms of AI, next frontier stuff, it's phenomenal. So approximate dynamic programming is based on a mix of stochastic programming and reinforcement learning. It's kind of like the next gen of AI. It's been really in the thresholds of academia for like the last 30 years. And so now it's the tide is turning where it's moving into industrial research or industrial application. It's different from traditional machine learning because machine learning is limited once you have a lot of data, and it's also limited because it can't compute efficiently when you have multiple agents you're trying to compute for. This technique, it is extremely powerful when you're working with a lot of different agents and you're trying to compute for them. So how do you save for companies using logistical optimization? I think just historically we've treated it as like a simple routing problem where you have one truck and you have to get it from point A to point B. It's a lot more complex than that. So logistical optimization, the comprehensive problem that it is, it's all about, on one hand, you have your trucks. On one hand, you have your drivers. You have to match these two, but you also have different parameters for your trucks and your drivers. Your trucks might have to be in a certain location at a certain time. Your drivers might not be able to, work after 9 days. Your drivers might also get sick. There might be unforeseen circumstances that you have to kind of factor in to your whole problem. So when it comes to logistics optimization, it's all about factoring in all of these dimensions and being able to give you directions and guidance about how to operate your logistics while minimizing the costs the most effectively as you can. Humans are limited after like a certain number of dimensions, right? With AI systems, you can factor in thousands or if not hundreds of thousands of dimensions and still compute it efficiently. So like you really need AI techniques if you want to move towards automation and if you want to truly bring in optimization to a system. So I think almost all industries are suited for AI. I work for BMW I Ventures. We're a car company, autonomous driving is the first thing that comes to mind. AI is powering all of your future autonomous cars. But I think just generally you can think of AI as enabling automation of tasks that maybe people don't want to do or people are doing right now, but it's kind of lowly work. And in the future, AI could also even replace very extensive and kind of complex tasks. We're just not there right now. Yeah, AI in the business today, as it exists, it's really about it's really focused on those narrow applications, kind of like the lowly task that no one wants to do. Like for example, if there might be, I'm just going to give an example of someone in a factory. Someone is responsible for bringing literally one part from point A to point B and has to do that 1,000 times a day. You can totally just automate that lowly task. It's not a very highly complex task. Things like that are kind of narrowly focused, more niched, are things that are kind of being automated today through AI. What surprised me about AI is the level of automation that it could, bring into a company, replace workers, replace mundane tasks. I think, just looking at all of these companies that I'm constantly talking to, like logistics optimization companies, autonomous driving companies, you get a sense that with AI systems, you're going to be able to reduce your workforce by X percentage, sometimes by 90%. There's moral implications to that, of course, but that's kind of the state of where AI is going right now. Some of the moral implications of AIs is that, you're going to be automating away jobs. So people are going to lose their work. But I think, I guess a counter to that is that there's been economic studies done on this. And what happens is when you have kind of workforce shifts where there's worker displacement, what happens is actually there becomes new industries that open up because of that automation. So you see workers moving towards those industries. I think the counter argument to that is that, well, there may be new jobs opening up, but your workers today who, might be truck drivers or might be, working in the factory, they're not going to be going to these new jobs. They're not going to be these programmers who, have more like highly complex tasks. What we have to do, I think, is just be careful about, how quickly we implement AI systems, and then also just be sensitive to the fact that we need to come up with some better solutions for the welfare of workers for when they, inevitably get automated. We have to, as a society, make sure that they have means to maintain themselves as well. I'll give you a very honest answer. I think the transformation of, kind of drivers or kind of more like, blue collar workers to like more white collar roles where there's more like complex level thinking involved, it's going to be hard. Um, I think this is the spirit of Silicon Valley, where we have all of these expectations that people can just learn everything, no matter where they come from. I'm certainly of that spirit, but not everybody is, right? And I think the fact is like my mom came from Chinatown, right? Just, there's certain groups, and just generally just talking about just general populations where you can't have that onus on people to have that that indomitable spirit to just go out and learn. Like we have to be able to supplement whatever they're doing with like not just like all these different alternative educational systems, but kind of like, training them to do other work or just, as Andrew Yang would provide, kind of like a universal income. So when developing an AI code base, most of the work or most of the code is going to be around the solutioning and the deployment of the system and how it integrates to the rest of your business application or service. The work for AI, you'll have some code for your AI, but like most of the work is done with like the iterative process of training the model. So that's the data scientist work. In terms of like the actual package size, it's and like the code, the amount of code that goes in, it's not extensive. That's a really hard question to answer, but I think where we can start is just having recognition that there are biases that exist in all of us. And if we recognize that and have an open discourse on it, hopefully we'll be able to recognize it once it's happening. But I think just generally there's should be a greater call for diversity. So, for example, if you're an African American person and you're training data, or you're developing a training data corpus to train your model, you would be more aware if all of the pictures in the training data set are all light skinned, right? You'll just have that recognition because you have that kind of like visceral reaction where you're like, not all of those pictures of those people look like me, right? So I think there's some accountability just for, organizations to have greater diversity because that lends to AI systems that are more accountable to a more diverse group of people. To design for an AI ML enabled world, what we need is to have clear initiatives within organizations to maintain data sets and maintain historical data, and also to ensure that the data that is being maintained, you limit the noise on that. In terms of what's happening new in software development, with AI systems, I think recently AI has kind of become commoditized, where you just take these off the shelf software packages for AI systems, and then you just plop it into your code, and then you have something up and running. Before that wasn't the case. What happened is you have to like develop your whole model. I think open source AI, that's the new shift, enabling kind of everybody to quickly and easily implement AI systems. Just generally in the business organization, if you want to have like an AI shift, you need to get buy-in from your C-suite executives as well as your board of directors. A lot of these big corporations, they literally have defined strategies that they appoint like some AI head, some chief data scientist, and they'll make clear efforts to integrate AI systems into their business processes. What is also critical is not just aligning your technical guys, which are always supporting you, supporting the increase of AI into your business, but also to have that alignment with your business leaders. I think it has to come from both sides, from both the technical world as well as the business world, for you to truly implement AI systems into the business organization. If you don't get buy-in from the business side of things for your AI systems, what happens is the pilot purgatory. So you'll have a bunch of AI initiatives. They'll get stuck in pilot phase, but they're not actually converted into like implementation into the business. That's the problem, right? And then you'll never become a truly AI-enabled company. You'll just become a company trying to implement things always, but not actually doing that. Oh, I see companies getting stuck in pilot purgatory all the time. All of these big organizations, these big companies, Fortune 500 companies, they have these innovation centers that are responsible for shepherding pilots through the organization and connecting these startups, these AI startups, or other types of technologies with the business units. What happens is they do the pilot, and then it fizzles out, and nothing actually gets implemented into the actual business process. So to combat the pilot purgatory potential with trying to implement any AI systems, what has to be done from like the C-suite is to have clearly defined business goals and initiatives that set AI as a priority, and not only make it a priority, but also make sure that it's part of your business processes. Um, you'll have to have your innovation officer, who's of course going to be implementing these AI systems. You'll want to have your data scientist, who's going to be responsible for maintaining like this corpus of data, and then you'll want to have like your business guys also being aligned on the same page as well. The first group that would be well suited would be your feedback loops into the product. And then the second camp would be having kind of a good system for maintaining analytics over the whole organization, so you can figure out where to optimize and also where to automate in the organization. Just to get business leaders to start thinking outside of the narrow focus of AI applications, you have to start talking about like, the real sizable business impact that can be had with AI systems. Like you can talk about technology all day long. You can talk about this new AI system, this neural net, this reinforcement learning algorithm. No one really cares. Like you got to show them the actual business results. You got to show them, hey, with this AI system, you're going to improve profitability by 10%, which would be huge, right? So I think translating the technical jargon into actual business results, that's what you have to do to get from narrow focus to kind of broader application. I haven't seen, just a low level stakeholder pushing AI to the C-suite. I think what has to happen is that the C-suite, you'll have like one board director or one executive from the C-suite who really understands the importance of AI systems and then kind of creates that virality within the C-suite. That board director or that C-suite executive might, get knowledge from, people on the ground, but he or she really has to, come from a background that recognizes the importance of AI to the business. Some of the misconceptions that business leaders might have about AI is the fact that it's hard. It's really not hard. AI has become so commoditized and commercialized that it's just like low-level code you can just, take from a library and drop it into your code. I think AI as a term, it's also kind of scary and nebulous because, people really don't know what it means. Um, I think you can, just think of AI as automation or being able to implement actions easier based on past learnings from your organization. So, having that kind of mind shift and like that sort of knowledge sharing with your C-suite, that's extremely important to kind of, get that, broader adoption of AI. There's different variations of AI. One is generalized AI, where it's basically operating to the extent that a human can operate. We're not there yet. Um, I don't think we're going to get there for a long while. Most of the industry is still stuck on like neural nets and just kind of like traditional machine learning techniques where you need a lot of data, and to get that data, you have to train your systems. But it's very computationally inefficient. I think what Moore's law says is that we're going to make those bounds faster. But in terms of getting to a generalized system within like the next 10 years, I don't see us getting there. It will happen in academia faster than actual business application, but not for a little bit of time. So reinforcement learning and just kind of like general like stochastic learning, programming, it's going to become a greater part of industry solutions. Right now, all of like the most of the packaged stuff that we get off the shelf is a lot of machine learning stuff. But I think as we commercialize these kind of novel, not so much novel, but like not as widely used AI techniques, it's going to become more prevalent in kind of our AI systems or our business systems. So logistics will be crazily impacted by these new types of AI techniques. But I think you can say that the types of industries that would be impacted would be any sort of, I like to call it unsexy industry that hasn't had much innovation, whether that's like trucking or like oil and rig or even automotive. Those are all areas that are kind of ripe for disruption. In terms of getting AI systems to, if you want to deploy an AI system, I think the main architectural challenges you're facing from a business side would be just getting mind share from across the organization, whether that's the technical guys or the business guys. I think we forget how slow moving big organizations are. They're highly politicized creatures. Everyone has done their job in some way in the past, and AI is going to disrupt how they've been doing that job. So there's always a lot of inertia with big organizations. So I think the common challenge that you'll have is always just like getting mind share and just deploying where a lot of people might feel uncomfortable. Businesses have seen the biggest impact from AI systems, I think, in just like low-level automation of tasks that no one wants to do. We've seen this kind of development of like RPA, robot process automation that will do lowly tasks like sending out emails you don't want to send out. With that, you can just like get rid of like a dedicated time of your day that you otherwise have to be working on sending out those boring things, to like having more creative tasks that you can do. Businesses have kind of struggled when rolling out AI when there's not like kind of cohesive alignment between technical and business leaders. You'll have the technical guy pushing for AI systems, but there's a lack of communication with the business leaders. If you have a technical guy just pushing the AI system, it might fail to take in the business feedback, which will make the AI system have an actual impact on the business. So just having a purely technical approach without clear line of sight of the business needs could make an AI project fail.